Deputy Collins.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. Yeah, I put this topical question in last Tuesday and Wednesday, and we're taking today, but it was on the back of the strike action taken on the 18th of January, which is last Monday week. You're well aware of the situation, Minister, that these workers, 1,250, are affected, CE supervisors and assistant supervisors, by not having an occupational pension, and the Labour Court recommendation in 2008 said that they should have an occupational pension. Now, 11 years later, we're still waiting. We know that in 2015, these workers got a commitment from the then government to resolve the issue. That government obviously fell then, and 2016 your government then came into power with Fianna Fáil. And it's been in transit, it has just been stuck there over that period of time. Now, Fianna Fáil committed to ensure a pension scheme as part of the confidence and supply agreement, and that hasn't happened yet neither. And both unions, SIF2 and Force, have written on numerous occasions to your department in relation to this. Now, 250 supervisors have retired since 2008. That's 250 who are just on statutory redundancy payments, and up to 40 retire every year. This is disgraceful, Minister, that these workers don't have a pension other than the statutory pension. The supervisors and assistant supervisors have a clear pay link with managers, instructors and administrative staff in community training workshops, and they're seeking a defined pension scheme similar to that which applies to these grades. And your government is ignoring the Labour Court recommendation. And you've always said over that side of the House that you would support Labour Court recommendations, as in the nurses issue, nurses and midwives, and the psychiatric nurses and other issues. So, Minister, I'm asking you to come into the Dáil here and give some sort of instruction that you will meet these workers and their worker representatives to discuss how this can be dealt with. And you can't keep hiding behind the fact that they're independent groups and acting as a shadow employer. It's very, very bad practice to take, hiding behind the structures of the CE schemes. The existence of employer-sponsored occupational pensions marks out decent employers. Now, in this case, I'm raising it with you, Minister, that you are being a bad employer by not looking at addressing this issue that these workers desperately need to be addressed.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. And at the outset, can I thank Deputy Collins for agreeing to reschedule the topical issue today, because it was picked on Thursday, and with her consent, because of a funeral that I had to attend, Deputy Collins moved it. So I'm taking the topical issue today on behalf of my colleague, Minister Donoghue, and any points raised today I'll bring to his attention. And I know the issue has been a source of concern to supervisors for a long time, and I also know that it has been raised here in the Dáil by successive deputies to successive ministers. And at the outset, let me say that the commitment, dedication and hard work of community employment supervisors and assistant supervisors who are employees of organisations in the community and voluntary sector is greatly appreciated by the Government and all sides of the House. The Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection assumed responsibility for the Community Employment Programme from FOSS in January 2012. In July 2008, Impact and SIP2 brought a claim to the Labour Court seeking exchequer-funded pension provision for the community employment supervisors and assistant supervisors. The outcome was a Labour Court recommendation that FOSS, as the recognised funding agency, should fund the pension provision. In relation to this recommendation, the position has always been that neither FOSS nor the Department of Employment and Social Protection is the employer, and it's not possible for the state to fund such a scheme of employees of companies, even if these companies are or were reliant on the state. The Community Sector High-Level Forum, which was reinstated in 2015, includes representatives of government departments, statutory agencies and union representatives. The forum has met on several occasions, and at a meeting in April 2017, the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform outlined its intention to conduct a detailed scoping exercise in order to comprehensively examine and assess the full potential implications of the issues that Deputy Collins and others have raised. The scoping exercise was carried out with input from the Irish Government Economic and Evaluation Services on the potential cost of providing the exchequer support for the establishment of such a pension scheme for employees across the community and voluntary sector. The exercise clearly illustrated that the matter presents extremely difficult and significant issues for the Exchequer, with a potential cost to the state of approximately €188 million per annum in respect of funding to enable an employer pension contribution in state-funded community and voluntary organisations, excluding any provision for immediate ex gratia lump sum payment of pension sought, which could, depending on the size of the sector, entail a further Exchequer cost of up to €318 million. And while the issue at hand relates to community employment supervisors and assistant supervisors, who I recognise feel aggrieved, these are a group within the wider community and voluntary sector. Any provision of funding for such a scheme in respect of employees could have a knock-on effect for other schemes. Therefore, the question of the pension provision for employees in the community and voluntary sector is one which is of relevance to a potentially very large number of individuals, far greater than the people who I know are very anxious in this sector. Finally, it is worth noting that the issue has been dealt with by successive Ministers for Social Protection, Finance and Public Expenditure and Reform since 2008 under 3 governments, and any of the points that Deputy Collins raises here today, which I have already made notes of, I'll bring to the attention of Minister Donoghue, and I think it would be also helpful that any support by way of a meeting that Deputy Collins requires with officials from the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, I'll bring back to the Department and arrange if she feels there's any benefit.
Collins. Thank you, Minister.
I would take up that offer, Minister, definitely, and thank you. But the Labour Court not only made a recommendation in 2008, they also made a recommendation the 16th of March 2016 in relation to an employee who worked in Waterford, or Tipperary Hostel Limited, and the Labour Court gave a ruling in that as well, and said, having considered the oral and written submissions of both parties, the Court recommends an ex gratia payment of 3 weeks' pay per year of service over and above the statutory redundancy payment already paid should now be paid to the claimant. The Court notes that due to the financial circumstances of the organisation, it does not have the funds to pay this amount out of its own resources, and therefore the Court recommends that the parties should jointly cooperate in seeking the necessary funds from the funding agency to discharge the amount recommended. Now, I think there's a responsibility on the government. You can't say because it costs too much we can't pay these workers a proper pension. It's either right or it's wrong. They're either entitled to it or not entitled to it, Minister. I think that's what we have to deal with here. If it's going to cost money, it costs money. And you know, I don't think the hiding behind the fact that they're private companies and all that, they get paid by the state. The jobs are run on behalf of the state in some of the most vulnerable centres throughout the country and areas throughout the country. As you said, they're very good work they do, but they don't need tea and simply, Minister. They need hard bucks because they're entitled to this as workers. And I think Patricia King came out very strong on this last week, where she said that, you know, it is bad. It's bad employer practice to not respect workers and give them a pension that they deserve. And I really would take up that issue, and I'd like to meet with the department in some way, because I make the point, to just finish off, the supervisors, assistant supervisors have a clear pay link with managers and instructors and administrative staff in community training workshops, and they get a pension. So why aren't these workers getting a pension? I think that's something that we could look into in more detail in relation to this.
Yeah, Count Corlett, thanks very much. And the case that Deputy Collins refers to there, the 2016 one again, you know, I will bring to the attention of the Minister, and just, I suppose, you know, you have heard, and the reply has been given, I'm sure, umpteen times in this House by successive people that have had to stand up and reply to it, is the definition of public servant, and that was the issue, you know, how they're paid and the mechanism through which they're paid. But I suppose one issue that I omitted to refer to was that in the aftermath of the community sector high-level forum being established under the Lansdowne Road Agreement in 2015, there were discussions between what is now Forsa, which was then Impact, and SIP2. It was chaired by an assistant secretary, and the membership included a wide range of government departments: employment affairs, social protection, health, education and skills, housing, planning and local government, Public as the agency responsible, and others. So, you know, the issues that you've raised raised. As I said at the outset, I'm here to listen on behalf and respond on behalf of the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform and my colleague Minister Donoghue. I have made note of the issues that you've raised. I have suggested maybe that an engagement between yourself and the officials in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform might be of benefit. So I'll take the issue back, discuss it with my colleague Minister Donoghue, and we will revert to you in due course.
Thank you, Minister. The third item